All right, good evening, everyone. I think we'll try and get started. Everyone's here. Yes, welcome. Welcome, everybody joining us in person and those online to the City of Summerside Committee of the Whole meeting of January 6, 2026. We have two meetings here tonight. First is our Planning Board. Second is our Committee of the Whole meeting. So we'll begin with our Planning Board meeting. We'll call it to order here at 5 p.m. And I'll call for a mover and a seconder from Planning Board to, with respect to the agenda. Moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Trenholm. All members of Planning Board okay with the agenda. There's only one item on it. Indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, changes, revisions? Seeing none, we'll move on. We begin each one of our meetings by acknowledging that the land upon which we gather is unceded Mi'kmaq territory, and that Ebikway is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. At this point, I'll hand it over to the Chair of Planning Board, Councillor Duran. Councillor, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. One and only item this evening for Planning Board, mobile sales establishment application for 560 Water Street. The purpose of the application is to allow a mobile sales establishment, Punjab Flavors on Wheels, to operate at 560 Water Street. The background, Gautam Grover and Gurjeet Singh applied for a mobile sales establishment license at 560 Water Street, weather permitting. The proposed hours of operation are 12 p.m. to 10 p.m., Monday to Sunday. Mobile sales establishment means a business located in a motorized vehicle or movable structure that is towed or moved by a motorized vehicle, and where all the goods, wares, or foodstuffs that are offered for sale are contained entirely within the motorized vehicle or movable structure, but does not include a lunch truck. Under Section 3, the City of Summerside Licensing Bylaw CS21, the bylaw states the following. Under Section 13, Mobile Sales Establishment License. A, any person or company seeking a license to operate a mobile sales establishment in the city shall make application therefore to the council. B, licenses may be granted for a mobile sales establishment to conduct business on a maximum of 2 locations in the city, and each application shall be accompanied by a letter of permission from the owner or owners of the property on which the mobile sales establishment will be located. Council shall allow or refuse the application based upon considerations of safety, desirability, impact on established businesses in the city, public convenience, and such other considerations as it deems appropriate. D, council may attach terms and conditions to the approval of the license if granted, including, but not limited to, hours and days of operation, health code requirements, litter control, and approved locations. E, the license for a mobile sales establishment shall be valid for the calendar year in which the application is made only. A new application is required to council for each calendar year. And F, no appeal shall lie from a decision of council respecting a mobile sales establishment license. The staff comments. In addition to the license being sought, the applicants have requested permission from the city, Community Services Director, Acting Robbie Rankin, to operate their mobile sales establishment on city-owned land at 560 Water Street, Greens Shore. The exact location of the mobile sales establishment on the property will be determined collaboratively by the city and the applicants. Recommendation, city staff support the application received from Gautam Grover and Gurjeet Singh to operate a mobile sales establishment, Punjab Flavors on Wheels, at 560 Water Street, property owned by the City of Summerside. The Planning Board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. The Planning Board recommendation, the mobile sales establishment application from Gautam Grover and Gurjeet Singh to allow a mobile sales establishment, Punjab on Wheels, to operate at 560 Water Street be recommended to be approved by council. I will move that, I guess, and ask for a seconder from Planning Board. Councillor Trenholm. Are there any questions or comments or discussion to be had? We'll do that now. Planning Board, but anybody can.
Yeah. Thanks. First of all, I'm not too excited about this application, being on our green shores down there. You know, it has always been a location that we've kept stuff like that away from, except for the when we had the Rib Fest and all that. And I'm kind of wondering, it says under 13B, licenses may be granted for a mobile sales establishment to conduct business on a maximum of 2 locations in the city, and each application shall be accompanied by a letter of permission from the owners of the property of which the mobile sales establishment will be located. Who would give that? Would that be the CAO?
It'll come from me, yep.
All right. Yeah, I just, I find that, I guess I don't agree with it because, you know, do we have these all over the parks and everywhere? I just, I think we're setting a precedent here that we don't need.
Thank you. I would very kindly disagree with Councillor McDougall. I think that something like this would be kind of nice to see down there. It's an area that doesn't get used very often. It's a nice big open green space. We're trying to entice people to go downtown more. Just because you do it once doesn't mean that it's going to work and it stays there forever. We have the opportunity to let them do it as a trial, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we don't ever have to do it again. It might also work really well, and more people might want to go down there, and then it could be like a little food truck area where people gather. I personally see it as the opportunity for having more people down on the waterfront in a social situation. I would be cautious because it is a nice big open green space. I wouldn't want to see it overrun by food trucks. That is something that we would control though, going forward. But I just think that it sounds like a pretty good idea to me.
Just a question, I guess, for CAO. Is the plan, if approved, to start to be present right away? Like, is there snow there? Like, or what's the deal there? Or is it just sort of a springtime thing?
The vendors did express wanting to get started right away, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would we just make sure that that area is clear if this goes ahead? Because it's sort of off a path.
This is the access to the beach, and from what I understand, that road is cleared all
Okay.
winter.
So they'll just be parked on the asphalt,
They would be parked to the west side of the asphalt.
like on the lawn?
Yeah.
Okay, so there wouldn't, the snow would have to be cleared, right, in order for them to go on the lawn? Which isn't an issue, I'm just kind of wondering how logistically
Yeah.
going there, because usually they're in parking lots or whatever, so, okay.
Yeah.
I read through the thing today and I started out thinking, no, I don't know if this is a great idea. Similar to what you said, Bruce, and then I thought, well, maybe similar to what Nick was saying, maybe it's a start of something. It throws a little loop for me when the idea of them starting right away, the winter, that, like, we don't tend to see food trucks out operating this time of year, and maybe that's not, I don't know, maybe that's just me thinking, just doesn't make sense with how I currently see things happening. Yeah, I struggle with this one because of the location. I think it's a great location is underutilized, so if we could find ways to get it better utilized, whether or not it's several food trucks or whatever, but yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying. I just, when I heard that they're looking to possibly start right away, that throws, and I don't know why that bothers me or doesn't make sense to me, but it doesn't. But, okay.
All right, Your Worship.
Yeah, I got a couple quick questions there. So, one, is there power at the site?
There is a service set up at the closest pole there, but they'll be required to bury their wires close.
Okay, so they can tie in to
Yeah.
power there. They don't have to run a generator?
No.
Right, and there's their water on site, or they'd have to bring their own?
They have to
For others.
bring their own water, yeah.
The only other question I had is if there have been any discussions about locating where the other food trucks have been located at the entrance to the boardwalk at the east entrance? Because we talked about that in this council a couple of times. There's Go Fish is there, I think it's TLC, the rolled ice cream is also there. And we had, as I understand at least, tried to encourage co-location of food trucks into that space as opposed to having them scattered about. I just wonder if that had been something that they brought forward.
Yeah, it's my understanding that that area is at capacity now, and this is the next identified area where they're interested in allowing food trucks from the Community Services Department.
So from our community service department said we're at capacity in that space, or JP?
We're at capacity from a perspective of not losing any more additional parking in that area. So as a means to maintain the existing parking that's there, there wouldn't be room for additional food trucks. I think that was the initial desire by the applicant, was to go there. And I know that in the past, there was some discussion about allowing food trucks in that space, but to try and keep available parking for the boardwalk access as readily available as possible. So I think Tech Services did a redesign to provide as much parking as possible and entertain 2 or 3 vendors. Now that there's 3 there now, in order to accommodate an additional one, parking would have to be lost, I'm told.
What's the third one? No, there's only 2 there.
There's-
isn't there?
There was 3 last summer, I
Was it?
believe.
I don't know. I'll go down there. I've never seen the third. Anyway, I think the discussion, the point at least we had discussed at council was to Councillor Cameron's point of co-locating some food trucks. So those are all my questions at this point. Councillor McDougall?
Yeah, what about parking? Are they gonna be allowed to pull in there and,
No, that's,
are they gonna have vehicles in there?
no, they're not able to drive their vehicles down there. That has to be kept clear for access to the beach.
Okay, no, like I said, I stated my case, and everybody else is in favor of it, go for it.
Okay. I'm just looking, so it's there the marcation is yellow. That's the area that you're looking at on the drawing? Okay. And I'm looking to the left of that sketch, and I see, like with Green Shores Park, and I know there's a distance there, but I guess the one question that I would have is, when all of the work was done on the boardwalk along, the seawall, all of that area, there was a fair bit of land reclaimed. There is work that has been done to the left of that, maybe further away. But I guess my question is, would we run into any problems with the infrastructure that's underground? If there was anything with the parking, because anytime we've had anything, any entertainment or whatever, if there was a heavy rain, we know why we've moved Canada Day. And that ground is very swampy and wet. And I'm just wondering, if we have somebody in that area, is that going to cause any problems with the underground infrastructure work that has been done with the Green Shore Park underground? Because there is a lot of water, and that's a very sensitive area. I'm not an engineer, but it does concern me, and we need to ask that before and maybe have a bit of a feedback on that.
As Cody mentioned, the location was reviewed with the community services where they, on that site. They located them, I guess, jointly or agreeably close to this path area, close to the street. And I say the community service groups are the ones that are hosting or the events that are there where they have issues. So I can only say that it wasn't I'll say our staff, but it was a city staff co-determination where they were going that site with the people that are operating the events. So I can't comment other than that.
I appreciate that. But I guess I feel obligated to mention it. I see that it is a distance, but again, some of the things that we run into, there's a lot of piping, there's a lot of work underground, and if you get, a lot of people around, or parking is an issue or whatever, we may run into something that would be a bigger problem. So I'm just putting that out there so it's on the record. Thank you.
Just one final question. That's where we take out the seaweed, and the seaweed is removed by the tides. The time of the tides is not, we're not gonna do it at 7 o'clock in the evening or whatever. But has that been taken into consideration when the removal of the seaweed is gonna be there?
I guess the notes in the file are that they, with the community service staff, that they're not to locate on that path, they're not to park on that path either, because it has to be maintained all the time for, yeah, they're just, but they've said it has to be maintained in the notes, that it has to be maintained entirely for complete access to the beach. So whether it's right at that, or they push them further back off of that path, or, but it has been, I'll say, top of mind with the community service staff, that has to be maintained all times.
Councillor Morrison?
You said that they'd be responsible for their own underground power, but I assume it's, the only power that I know of down there belongs to the city itself. So are they tapping into that? And will they then be responsible for the power bill, or is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, they're responsible for the installation of the underground power and contacting their electrician to hook it up and the permits with the city, all that, yeah.
Yeah, but then so the bill then will be presented to them every month, like, and they'll pay for the.
Yep.
And I just don't know how big that service is too, because if the city wants to do stuff and brings other things in there, and they wanna use some of that power, how much is available, you know what I mean? Like, how big of a service is it, or?
Yeah, they've been in contact with the electrical department to make sure that there's enough power for
Yeah.
them. I'm not sure about future plans, but
Yeah. And the only other concerns I'd have besides that is if they're gonna go in the wintertime, it's one thing to go from the middle of April to the middle of November. But if you're going from the middle of November to the middle of April, they must have some special equipment to keep things from freezing, and
yeah.
and so it'll be expensive for them. But anyway, that's entirely up to themselves. My only other concern would be, if they were going there and staying there is great. But if it was one of those vehicles that would be there, you know, for a month and then maybe gone for a weekend and then back and then gone, if they're driving in and out of there on the grass and they do damage, I assume they're also responsible to fix it, and, you know, when they're done, it should look exactly the same way as when they arrived.
Mhm. Yep, that can be added to the conditions.
Yeah, I just wouldn't wanna see them, and say, maybe their intent is to stay there full time, but if they, you know, sometimes people move around for a weekend, or there's these events going across the island, and they can go and attend those, and they're probably busier for whatever reason to go. I just hate to see them coming and going and coming and going and do damage, and then not show back sometime, and then we're stuck with the bill to fix it up.
Yep.
Councillor Trenholm?
Thank you. Just a short point. We did a survey in the summer about park use, so I just want to identify that this would fit in terms of, we asked the public what types of amenities would increase your use in the park. Just for information, I guess. Approximately 30% of the general population said that if there was a food service or a snack service to that degree, that it would increase park usage. It ranked 16th, just for information, so it wasn't a high motivator for sure. So it was more lower to mid to lower for sure. But I do tend to think that the more people we can have in areas of the park is great, and in that area, some more amenities as such. But I certainly hear the issues and concerns too. So I think we need to look into this further. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, and a decision on this won't be made until the monthly meeting on January 19th, so we have time to sort of weigh these inputs and points and revisit it at that time. So if there's nothing else, we'll just take a vote from planning board in order to send it to that meeting. So that was moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Trenholm. All members of planning board in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? His worship. So that will come back to our monthly council meeting on January 19th, and we will make a final decision.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair Duran. With that, we adjourn our planning board meeting here at 5:20 PM, and if council's okay with it, we just roll right into our committee of the whole meeting. Great. So with that, we'll call to order the committee of the whole meeting of January 6, 2026. Call for a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented. Deputy Snow, second. Councillor Cameron, sorry, Norma, Nick beat you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, changes, revisions? Seeing and hearing none. At this time, I'll ask for any member of council to declare a conflict of interest, whether real or perceived, with respect to any item on the agenda before you. Seeing and hearing none, we'll continue to move along. We'll move into committee reports. First committee report, Finance Committee, Chair Councillor McDougall, and with a recommendation with respect to pension plan adjustments. Councillor.
I don't have much of a report. We've been working on things, and I think we have a couple of items that are coming up for our February meeting. There are policies, a couple of policies, so I'll do an update on them at a later date. But I do have a recommendation here from our pension committee. Okay, this is from the Pension Plan Committee, and it's Pension Plan Amendment Number 9, a waiver of joint and survivor pension. The issue, when an employee retires, different options for the for receipt of the monthly pension are offered. The current pension plan rules have different options available for members who have a spouse at the time of retirement than members who do not have a spouse at the time of retirement. The Pension Committee has recommended to the Finance Committee that married members should have the option to opt out of joint and survivor pensions. Additional background for is the current options available. A married member, the default from the pension for a married member is a joint survivor 60% pension. Under this form, the member will receive their full monthly pension for as long as they live. Upon their death, and if the spouse is still living, the same spouse at the time of retirement will receive a monthly pension equal to 60% of the member's pension. Other options available to the married member upon retirement is to elect to increase the 60% to 66%, 75%, or 100%. If a higher percentage is selected, the member's monthly pension will be lower depending on what percentage is selected. For a single member, the default form of pension for a single member is a full monthly pension for as long as they live, guaranteed for 10 years. If the member dies before receiving 10 years of pension, payments to the member's beneficiary or estate will receive the balance of the 10 years' worth of payments. If the member dies after receiving 10 years of pension payments, no further payments will be made to the member's beneficiary or estate. Single members can opt to receive their pension as a life-only pension, guaranteed option for 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. Payments are made for a member's lifetime, but no further benefits are paid after the member's death. A lower guaranteed period will result in a slightly higher monthly pension payment, while a higher guaranteed period will pay a slightly lower monthly benefit. And other preliminary relevant considerations is currently married members cannot elect a single life form of pension at retirement and must elect a joint and survivor pension. The implications of allowing a married member to opt out of joint and survivor pensions and to elect a single life form of pension will not have a negative cost implication for the pension plan, as liabilities for single life forms are lower than liabilities for married members. There are circumstances which may make sense for a married member to opt out of the joint and survivor benefits. For example, the spouse is in poor health and a shortened lifespan. Other pension jurisdictions allow married members to opt out for joint and survivor benefits as a common practice. It is important that both the member and spouse understand the implications of opting out of the joint and survivor pension. To address concerns for the finance and pension committees and as a protection for the survivor, this option is only allowed if both the member and their spouses complete a form which must be witnessed by a notary public and waiving the joint and survivor pension. So the Finance Committee recommends that the Council consider a resolution at the January monthly Council meeting to amend the pension plan rules, allowing married members to opt out of the joint and survivor pension. A spousal waiver form has been developed and will be provided to married members at retirement as part of their retirement options package. Any questions on that? If not, we'll be bringing that forward to our January meeting, monthly meeting.
Great. Thank you, Counselor.
Good.
Chair of
Thank you.
Finance, appreciate that.
Thank you.
I did just have a quick note here, just to give everyone this, not everyone has to say it, just for members of the public who are joining us here as well. Since our last committee of the whole meeting, it's been Christmas and New Year's, so there hasn't been as many committee meetings through the last few
Right.
weeks. So
Yeah.
there may be a few of you saying, well, we haven't done anything since the last one,
Yeah.
that's given the holiday
Yeah.
season. So
Yeah.
there you go, that's a little heads up. With that, I'll hand it over to Bylaw and Governance Chair, Councillor McCollum. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank Lindsay Connolly, the Funding and Policy Analyst. She prepared a bit of a brief point to relay to Council. The Bylaw and Governance Committee last met on December 3rd, when the draft Code of Conduct Bylaw, Procedural Bylaw, and a staff change log were circulated. The committee discussed bylaw priorities and directed staff to focus on the vacant and unsightly bylaw. Research is complete, and this bylaw will be brought forward for discussion and review at the next committee meeting, with the Code of Conduct and Procedural Bylaws deferred to Q2 of 2026. Additionally, new election regulations under the Municipal Government Act require updates to the city's elections bylaw, and this must be adopted by council before August 26th. And just as a breakdown for our awareness as council, the meetings are done in like 4 quarters for the calendar year, because it really takes a 2 to 3 month range to do the work. So just as a breakdown for fellow councilors, the policy plan, the research and the review is usually taking place in Q1. Q2 would be the review by committee and feedback on the work and the prep that has been done by staff, and discuss any questions. Number 3, Q3 would be, it would then come to council for the final debate and direction, and then possibly in the next quarter or whatever, it would be a vote by council. So they're trying to break it down so that there's time to do the review and the research, do the prep work and the work plan, bring it back to council so that we have insight into it, and then bring it back for a final look at it. Okay, so that concludes the update.
Thank you, Councillor, Chair of Bylaw and Governance. Hand over to Councillor Duran, Chair of Planning Committee. Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. In terms of committee updates, we, like you said, didn't meet in December. And up until that point, obviously, we've been working on our Complete Streets recommendation and our Complete Streets sort of draft policy. So when the committee meets later on in January, I'll have a better sort of report on the rest of our items for our February Committee of the Whole meeting. So we do have a presentation this evening, as well as a recommendation. The presentation is about how we begin to hopefully implement a complete streets policy, which is already referred to in our official plan, specifically as they apply to local streets. At its core, and I am going to mention probably a couple of details that will be in the presentation itself, but I just wanted to sort of do a preamble before I hand it over to staff. So at its core, a complete street is about designing neighborhood streets that safely serve all users, not just vehicles. That includes pedestrians, children, seniors, cyclists, and drivers, all sharing space in a way that is predictable and safe. There is a strong body of evidence relevant showing that even modest pedestrian infrastructure, such as a sidewalk on one side of a local street, delivers real benefits. These include improved physical and mental health, stronger neighborhood connections, increased walkability, better safety outcomes, and over time, higher perceived and real property values. Those benefits are particularly relevant here on PEI, We have long winter evenings and shoulder seasons where it's dark early, visibility is reduced, and surfaces are often wet or icy. On many local streets today, residents are already walking, but they're doing so on asphalt, close to moving vehicles. A sidewalk placed on the same side as street lighting, as contemplated in the recommended option, which Megan will describe shortly, creates a consistent and visible walking environment that matters for seniors, kids, and anyone walking a dog after supper in November. This isn't about changing behavior, it's about making existing behavior safer. We're also seeing more young families in newer subdivisions across the city and across the island. Parents with strollers, kids walking to a friend's house, neighbors making short trips within their own community. Without sidewalks, those trips happen on the road. With a single continuous sidewalk, safety improves, conflict points are reduced, and neighborhoods become more comfortable places to live. From a policy standpoint, this work responds directly to Council's direction to examine how complete streets can be implemented on local streets and whether sidewalks could be introduced without fundamentally changing our existing road standards. Staff explored 4 options, developed cost estimates, and engaged local developers to understand potential impacts. I also want to note that staff have been working on this at the committee's direction for the better part of a year. They've been balancing this work alongside other files, refining details after feedback from both the committee and the development community. While we are obviously open to additional input, I am quite confident that no stone was left unturned in exercising Council's desire to explore a complete streets policy, which is a requirement in our official plan. So after reviewing that work, the Planning Board Committee is bringing forward a clear recommendation, maintaining the current asphalt standard, adding a sidewalk on one side of the road, and allowing for on-street parking or an active transportation lane. Importantly, it also supports delaying sidewalk construction in new subdivisions to minimize damage during home construction. I do expect that the discussion will turn to costs, and that is appropriate. The presentation outlines multiple cost-sharing mechanisms, including collecting contributions at the building or development permit stage, sharing funding models, and the use of external funding programs where available. So the decision before us tonight, and it's not necessarily having to be a decision tonight, but it's not about installing sidewalks everywhere immediately. It's about setting a clear standard, endorsing a practical direction, and allowing staff to refine timelines and funding tools that reflect market conditions and council priorities. So I will now turn it over to Megan and Aaron to deliver the fun stuff. Thanks.
All right, good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Happy New Year. Thank you, Councillor Jerome. That was a really good summary of the work that we've done to date. So as Councillor Duran had mentioned, Complete Street, it's designed to consider the needs and safety of all of its users. So you'll see things like widened sidewalks, benches along it to give folks a space to stop and rest, separated bike lanes. Complete Streets are very people-focused. They put the people-focused lens on our street design. And then, of course, there's the kind of follow-up question of what makes a street complete. So there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to complete streets. You're going to see one street with a sidewalk on one side with benches. You may see another street that has sidewalks on both sides. You may see one that has a separated bike lane, maybe sidewalk bump outs. It really depends on the environment that the street is going into. So why are we considering complete street design standards? So Summerside is growing, and as a larger, more populated subdivisions are built, we want to ensure safe pedestrian connectivity throughout our community. Summerside's official plan has several policies, goals, and objectives that speak to decreasing the focus on the automobile, encouraging a pedestrian-friendly road design, creating walkable neighborhoods that promote physical health, and increasing the feeling of community and connectedness. Section 3.7.5 specifically addresses complete streets. The objectives in this section are to develop an active transportation plan with the added direction that council will favor a complete streets approach when developing the plan, and then to also improve bicycle and pedestrian circulation. And as our community grows as well, we've noticed, our residents rather, are noticing what were once quiet streets are becoming much busier. They're feeling unsafe when they're walking along those streets that were designed to move cars rather than people. And so really that's one of the bigger reasons why complete streets are being considered at this time. Okie dokie. So Summerside has three types of road standards. We have arterial, collector, and local. Arterial roads are built to the highway standard, and our collector roads already have the sidewalk requirements. So those two weren't included in the complete streets review. So we've looked specifically at our local roads. In the presentation on this slide, we have included the cross-section for local roads. The Planning Board Committee asked staff to investigate different ways to introduce pedestrian-friendly pathways and sidewalks into the local roads cross-section, to provide estimates for those costs, and to engage developers to learn what the impact would be. So just to kind of base, just to give us a base for going forward, the cost estimate for an existing local road cross-section is $976 per linear meter. And then we kind of figured that a sidewalk costs approximately $388 per linear meter. So that's our starting point. So the first option that we worked through was repurposing the existing road standard. So to do that, there would be no change to the asphalt width, nor would there be a concrete sidewalk. To accommodate a pedestrian pathway, the following changes would need to be made. So the travel lanes, the vehicle travel lanes would be moved off-center. The travel lane width for those cars would be reduced. There would have to be the removal of on-street parking, and that parking would then be replaced with the shared pedestrian and bike lane. So where there's no changes to the construction portion of this cross-section, the estimated cost remained the same. So here is an example of the existing road standard here. And this is Potter Street, so you've got lots of room for the cars. You can see there's a pedestrian there using the street. Yeah. Option 2 is to input the sidewalk, but decrease the sidewalk, or asphalt width rather. So this was considered to see if we could make building a sidewalk cost neutral if we decrease the sidewalk width. Spoiler alert, it didn't. So this cross-section shows the reduced asphalt width, reduced travel lane width for the cars, the removal of on-street parking. It shows that bikes and cars would be sharing the road, and then the sidewalk would be built as well at the time of road construction. So the estimated cost for this cross-section is just shy of $1,200 per linear meter, which is about $222 more than our current standard. There is a table in the report and at the end too, so you don't have to remember all of these numbers that I'm throwing at you. Option 3 is very similar to option 2. The only difference is that it's delaying the construction of the sidewalk. So the purpose of this would be to reduce the need to repair the sidewalk if there's any damage done as the houses are being built, when the subdivision's finished. So the timing for when the sidewalk will be built in this option would be tied, or could be tied rather, to when a certain percentage of the lots have been developed, or to when all of the lots on the sidewalk side of the road have been developed. So this cross-section you can see shows that the sidewalk, which will be built in the future, a reduced travel lane width, reduced asphalt width, the removal of on-street parking, and bikes and cars sharing the road. So with the delayed sidewalk construction, the estimated cost of this road would be less. It would be $830 per linear meter. But once completed, it would cost just over $1,200, which is $240 more than our current standard. So the difference in the pricing between option 2 and option 3 is because we'd have to have a temporary shoulder built while we're waiting for the sidewalk to go in. So here is basically an example of options 2 and 3 on Glen Drive. You can see at one point it was that 7 meters, and then the sidewalk was built out. And just to highlight too, the asphalt was widened a bit when the sidewalk was built. Boom. All right. And then this is the option 4, where we're using our current standard, but we're adding a sidewalk on the side of it as well. So the so this one also has the off-center travel lanes, reduce the travel lane width, but there's space for bikes and cars to share the road. There is the separate sidewalk, and then there's room enough to choose between having a dedicated active transportation lane or on-street parking. So because this one is wider, it is more expensive. So this one is just shy of $1,300 per linear meter. And then as with option 3, the sidewalk can be built in the future. And I've got 2 slides here that kind of show the option 4. It was a bit of a struggle trying to find the right road width, but you can see here that this one has the off-center travel lanes rather, and then a little bit of parking on the side, and then the sidewalk. And then here, showing that a little bit better, where there's no grass median, so the sidewalk directly adjacent to parking, and then the 2 travel lanes. Okay, so here is the summary table. So the recommendation from Planning Board is option 4 with the delaying of building the sidewalk. So staff estimates that the construction of a sidewalk will cost about $388 per linear meter. So it's really important to note that these cost estimates are only accurate for this year. The cost of sidewalk construction will continue to increase. So in the scenario where the sidewalk construction is delayed, that $388 isn't expected to cover the cost in the future when the sidewalk's built. So this means that the city will need to cover the difference. As it would be difficult to return to the developer an undetermined amount of time in the future and ask them to cover that difference. We do kind of touch into cost sharing options a little bit later in the presentation. Okay. We did a bit of stakeholder engagement, so we spoke with a handful of our local developers so we could better understand what their concerns would be and to talk about potential mitigations or alternatives. So the concerns that they raised were the increased cost will dwindle an already small profit margin and will likely eliminate the development of new single detached dwellings. They raised the concern that Summerside already has the highest development standards on the island, that it will be a disadvantage to small developers, and that if the sidewalks are built before the lots are built, that those sidewalks will see considerable damage. And then we talked with them about any suggestions or mitigation that we could do. So they asked about potentially reviewing our development standards for the roads, finding funding to build sidewalks elsewhere. So there's the gas tax, there is an active transportation fund, or the option of adding a charge at the building permit stage. So then the cost of the sidewalk would be downloaded onto the home builder. Using different materials for sidewalks, saying that all were in agreement that asphalt isn't a really good long-term solution. Painting off the sidewalk, quotations, within the existing road right-of-way instead of installing a concrete sidewalk. Adjusting the lot sizes, setbacks, eliminate parks and green spaces fee. Alternatively, using that park and green space fee to build the sidewalks. And then the final suggestion was delaying taking taxes on shovel-ready lots until the majority of the subdivision's been sold. So the final thoughts on the whole exercise. So Planning Board Committee's preferred option was a blend of 3 and 4. So the preferred cross-section of option 4, but the preference to delay sidewalk construction. The option 4 cross-section maintains a reasonable travel lane width and on-street parking. It has a separate sidewalk, and it allows for bikes and cars to share the road. The next really big item for consideration is the cost sharing. So developers across the board really express their concerns with the increased cost to development in an already tight market. So there are a couple of options we kind of tossed around. The first one being the developers shoulder the full cost. that developers pay that $388 per linear meter at time of subdivision approval. And then when the sidewalk is constructed in the future, the city will cover the remainder of that cost. That developers pay the cost difference at time of subdivision approval. So options 4's difference is $298 per linear meter. And then when the sidewalk is constructed in the future, the city will cover that remainder cost. That the city will take the money at the building or development permit stage. And the final suggestion, of course, is not the only, like these 5 aren't the only solutions, is that the city covers the full cost and using grants and incentive programs to help pay for the sidewalk. And then, of course, important to remember is that the construction of the sidewalk isn't the only cost. We will be responsible for maintaining it and doing any repairs, so like snow removal, and then the impact to staff workloads, city equipment, and then the annual budget should also be considered. Okay. And then this was a attempt to show what a sidewalk install would look like on Butter Street. So it would be on the side where the lights are. It wouldn't shorten the road at all. It would just be in addition to the travel lanes. Perfect. And that is everything. I'm sure there's lots of questions. For sure. It would be, it's fake, yeah, it's fake, it's not a real sidewalk, but it would be. Yeah, the road width didn't change. It's not to scale. It was just kind of like a visual example of where the sidewalk would go.
But the road is to scale. The road is what's there now.
Yeah.
We're saying instead of putting that curb and gutter on one side, the sidewalk will go in that place.
Yeah.
So the asphalt surface would stay the same that you have now. The curb and gutter that exists on one side when it was built, the second one would not go in at that time. The sidewalk would go in when 85% of the lots were built, and we would have a sidewalk with a combined sidewalk and gutter on that side. So the asphalt remains the same. Instead of having a curb and gutter, you had a sidewalk in year 4 or something.
Yeah, and I'll just scooch back to those options there.
And did we start doing that, like the sidewalk runs through entrances now? Like,
The sidewalk goes through The sidewalk goes through all driveways with the exception, I'll say, of a truck like ADL or a high volume, yeah, so typically we're responsible for the sidewalk path going the entirety of the sidewalk path. If we got to driveways and they weren't, I'll say, being maintained or gonna be needing asphalt or something, we were technically still responsible for that I'll say the responsibility of people walking in that path. So all sidewalks went across and we drop it across the driveways of residents with the exception of, I'll say, heavy vehicle, commercial locations.
so those ones that are there that you just showed wouldn't be there?
We'll have to go back to the,
Like they'd stop then?
right now, the people that curb that's there is all a mountable curb, so it would go in at the same height as that, all the new subdivisions go in at that height. So the sidewalk would still go across those locations at that same height and wouldn't affect their driveways or,
So-
is that your question?
Yes, so we are putting sidewalks across driveways, not just commercial.
Yes, we have been for 25, 30 years.
Okay.
Also, don't take this too seriously. This was just.
No, no,
Okay,
no, no.
okay.
I get ya.
Yeah, it's all nice, and I'd love to have a sidewalk myself, but we have a lot of subdivisions out there that would love to see a sidewalk. And this would be for new development only, right? My only concern, there's two concerns, is driving up the cost of development in the city. And the other thing, if they're saying we're the highest cost of standard development, and then we're saying, well, we'll charge the homeowner on the building permit, how do our building permits compare to permits in Charlottetown or anywhere else right now? So I'm all for it, but I'm just not sure that I want to,
We'd have to get back to you on our permit fees. I still think we did a review. We increased our permit fees last year in our budget. It was after review, and I think we stayed lower than the surrounding areas, but we can get you the exact numbers. You brought up the point that our streets are to a higher standard than others. That was a comment that came back from the developers. We were not in I'll say an interactive, we were seeking information for them. We weren't debating the information that was being put forward. We contacted the province and said, okay, everywhere that you guys are building streets for the last, we'll say 3 years in subdivisions, what are they being built because they're the province responsibility? We overlaid that cross-section on ours, and we can show you, it's a real busy picture, but if you wanted to zoom in, the top section is what you guys have all seen in our section 3 and 4.
Right.
Forget that it's that busy, but just try and picture on the dark black, that's the width of the asphalt. The province's roads, when they build them now, are required all subdivisions to go in with curbs like we do, so it's the same apples and apples.
Right.
Their paved surface is 4 feet wider than ours, but our base asphalt is 65 millimeters. Sorry, is it 60? Ours is 75 and theirs is 60. So our base asphalt is 50 millimeters thicker than theirs,
Right.
but their base seal, gravel, and shale is 4 feet wider than ours. So that is a myth. That is not a fact that our streets are more expensive than others. And that's why we asked for this. We asked staff, we're going to clean this up and have this for our developers to say, it's not a fact what you're saying that other jurisdictions are, and our road is 4 feet narrower than what you're required to do if you're building for the province with curbs. And yes, our base asphalt is the only thing that's thicker than the province, and we're reviewing that as part of our standards review that we committed to reviewing.
Okay. No, that's real good information there. I'm glad you brought that up.
You brought it up, I'm just trying to answer the
Yeah,
question.
no, but I'm glad you came back with that, because that's something that I wouldn't have known unless you put that up there. And
It's been debated many times or
Yeah.
talked about, but we've
Yeah.
finally got the provinces to give us their cross-section that they're requiring other communities to build because they're maintaining them and building them.
But I guess what my point is, the developer keeps saying that it's higher to development costs in the city are higher than it is anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna add more.
I'm not debating what they're saying on that part. The other
Yeah.
part was, yes, their cost to help you with is they're saying, even if the road is the same cost going in here as Charlottetown and Stratford, they felt they're not getting the lot prices
Right.
that those jurisdictions were, so they're saying their costs. So don't blame it that our standards are higher.
Right.
Your total return may not be the same because they said they weren't getting it on the total sale value, so the net profit is harder to get here in Somerset. That was an
Right.
that we would agree with,
Yeah.
that they're,
And
that's why the options-
My concerns was that, and
Yep.
the cost of building permits here versus anywhere else.
yeah.
And I just don't want to we've been blessed with development over the last number of years, and I don't want to kick that can down the road or say go somewhere else, so.
And that's why
I want
as-
to be cautious of it.
Councilor, one of the options was us continuing to pay for the sidewalk cost and then paying the difference, so that's why it was one of the 5. If you
Right.
felt that way, saying, okay, one of the options is if we're paying, the reason really why number 4 became about, if we look at the summary table, is that we were gonna pay $200 to $240 per meter to put it in as part of this project.
Right.
It's costing us $388 for us to put it on every other existing subdivision or one of these later. We're saying we can put it in as part of this development at $298. We're saving ourselves $100 a meter automatically, and we're saying then are we talking? That's why one of the options was, should we be getting the developer to pay that $298 or a portion of that? So there are a bigger part of the debate. First is, are we gonna go and change it? And then part of that's gonna be, okay, what's gonna be the cost?
Well, it just boiled down to the difference between a curb and a sidewalk, wouldn't it?
And that was where we were, is $388 now and $100 and some dollars for the curb, so the difference is $288 or $298 on, yeah. But as they're pointing out, if it's going in at year 5, we've took a hard number from them now, and we may have to top it up based on what that cost is in 5 years' time.
Okay, thank you.
And just another consideration is that, I don't want to use the word cheaper, but it would be a lot less expensive to have sidewalks added incrementally as neighborhoods develop versus like retrofitting complete streets later.
Councilor Morrison?
Thank you. I wasn't understanding the 388 and the 298, but I got it now. But there's no question that complete streets or whatever are much neater, more finished looking product or whatever, nicer, and it just looks better, and it's a finished job, like I say. The problem is, and we just discussed it, about the margins to make money in this area are much tighter than they are in some other areas on PEI. And even though it looks much better if we, like that number 4, and I did some quick math, it adds about 30%. And of course, the numbers you're using there too are just on the asphalt alone.
It's more than, it's the numbers we use, I'll call it, is the top. We didn't count any of the infrastructure underneath, water, sewer, storm. We counted
Right.
shale, gravel, curbs,
Right.
and asphalt, because that was the only thing that was gonna change on the options. So yes, the cost is well more than the 976 on the street.
Yeah, because the underground's gonna stay the same.
Correct, we just
And
picked what would be, if we're wrong or adjusting something, we're only adjusting that top portion. So yes.
So it adds 30%, it's 30% to the numbers we're using today, but it won't be 30% on the whole entire development of the
Yeah,
project.
we're talking, I think numbers we'd thrown around before was $3,500 total per meter of everything. Water, sewer, storm, street, some,
Yeah, is that one side or for?
no,
like,
the
whole
entire,
road?
local street we'd asked for developers, it was in the $3,000 to $3,500 range. So if we're adding $300 to it is what?
10%.
8 or 9% if it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, no, and
It's
that's,
still a number, yeah.
yeah, and there's no question, it adds to the community, it's much better, and like I say, and it's a much more finished product. The only problem is, the margins being as fine as they are, and anybody that follows the building permits, probably in the last 6 months, the development was much less in Summerside than it had been in the last few years. And I suspect the next couple of years will be similar, and I'm not a professional, but that's just personal opinion. And I certainly wouldn't want to do anything to make it more difficult or tougher for developers. Now, and again, I'm not necessarily opposed to the finished product or the complete streets, and I get the safety issue, and I get all that. The only problem is, we don't want to price ourselves out of heaven. We might not have to worry about it at all, because there'll be nobody building anything if it gets to be too expensive. So we gotta walk a pretty fine line. I talked to a developer today that has, like, the number 1 part of their development done, they have a 2 and a 3, and they said, yeah, if they add that $300 on, we're done, we won't be doing any more. So I just wanna mention that, and I'm sure you're aware of it.
We heard the same discussions, which is why we hopefully captured that in the report, and that's why some of the options there, it's not
Now-
all the developer pay,
Yeah.
or are we, is one of them, since we're taking off that, I think one of them, whether it's the summary of it, but is the city, instead of paying 388, you guys will get a list of sidewalk submissions in your budget where you'd like
Right.
to put them, they're all gonna be at that 388 per meter. So instead of putting new ones in there, you're gonna put this one in at 288, and the developer's saving paying $100 that he would've spent on the curb towards sidewalk, and you're paying 288 instead of 388, or you're paying it all.
Yep.
Yeah, we heard what they said, and that's what we tried to capture in,
I like
and we
the
don't
idea.
disagree with what they're saying on
Yeah.
the cost either.
I like an idea of whether it being a third between the developer, the city, and whether you take the gas tax or whether you take the green money for the,
AT trail or.
right, out of that fund or something like that. I think it's really important that when people approach the city, anytime, that we work with them and not, and there's nothing worse, and I've said it up here before, and I don't want to, I don't want to cause issues and get into, but I know different people that want to do something with properties and all that, and basically, they come in and they explain what they're trying to do or what the thing is, they just say, no, you can't do that. Well, okay, that's fine if it's no, But for the love of God, sit with them and say, but here's what might work, and here's what maybe we can do. You know, don't just say, nah, I can't do that. It just, anyway, it irks me to no end, and I don't want to sound like I'm growling about it, but, you know, work with people. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, I'm just kind of reminding people that we should be servicing people or helping people as much as we possibly can to make as much happen in Summerside as we possibly can. The last 2 or 3 or 4 years have been great. It's probably been the best it's ever been. That's not going to continue. The next 3 or 4 years won't be the best it's ever been. I hope it is. But, so again, there's no question it's a much better product, finished look, you know, it adds to the community, it makes everybody happier, it's safer, and I get all that. But you can't price yourself out of the business or the market. So just thought I'd mention that so people could think about it before we make the decision. Thank you.
I'll just have a couple there quickly, Justin. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing this forward, and to the committee for all the work and staff that you've put into this. Certainly, I don't think it's any surprise to any of you to hear that I'm really supportive of building sidewalks in our community for all of the reasons that Councillor Duran spoke to. And they're, in a lot of ways, how we move people around our city. One of the most fundamental things we do here as a council and as a municipality. The advantages and the benefits that Councillor Duran spoke to, from sense of connection, health, property values, sidewalks make sense in pretty much every circumstance that I can see. I certainly hear the cost issue. The thing I struggle with on the cost, folks, and I'll just leave it with you to think about, is the development standards of the city of Summerside in the last 4 years are the same development standards that the city of Summerside has had for the last 14. What has changed and what has driven development has not been the cost of building a road, but has been the ability to make money by building here in Summerside, by meeting a need. And I think this council and us as a group have done an incredible job in terms of creating more opportunities than ever before for people to build more varieties of housing, especially in the residential piece, more types of housing across our city in all circumstances. We have approved so many rezoning developments, whether it is to an R3 or to an R4 or to something else, that has met the needs of our community and has helped create development. And I think we have been a pretty pro-development council. That's just my assessment. I certainly have been as mayor. But at the end of the day, when I sit back, I look at, I answer to not necessarily to developers, but I answer to residents. And I think the benefits for our community outweigh the risk, which I think is somewhat overinflated for future development. So what I'd love to see us do is look at ways to, as Councillor Morrison said, look for if there is a cost share component here, if it is to include a portion in a building permit, so it takes the pressure off of the developer and more onto the actual builder, the homeowner who generates the benefit from that on average. For an average lot, I think in Summerside it's like 14, 15 meters wide. That's an additional cost of about $4,500, I think $4,400 to put a sidewalk across. I think that is a huge benefit, not just to the individual homeowner who now has a sidewalk in front of them and also has a safe way to move their kids to school or to go see their parents or their friends down the street. But I think it's a great benefit to all of us here in the city. So I'd love to see the committee and work with staff to come forward with some costing options if council is interested in looking at building sidewalks in the future. And I also think about, this really isn't a decision that's going to have a huge impact in the next 1 year, 5 years. This is an impact really that'll be 10 years, 20 years down the road, and probably more so than anywhere else is along Cairns Boulevard, which will be the area that over time continues to develop and put in new subdivisions and new neighborhoods. And what effectively I see at least have a vision of coming back here, because I certainly won't be here in this chair in 25 years, you can write that down, would be that those neighborhoods, as they develop, are walkable communities where people can walk to the corner store or to the pharmacy or maybe their little grocery store or to their neighborhood park. And the city continues to thrive and connect to the wonderful people that live in it. So that's my my summary and thoughts on it. So, and I really do appreciate the work from committee members, Councillor Trenholm, Duran, and Adams, who put in a lot of hours and meetings on this file. Thanks.
Just one question, I don't know if it's possible. The one that's being done out there by the theater now, the last ones, I think, Duffy's, yeah. So, just that area there, would we be able to figure out the difference, what that part was done, you know, what would the difference be to a developer if he was to do it?
Sorry, use that as an
Status quo now.
use that
Yes,
as an
sort of
example.
use that as an example.
And whether you know that one got finished and right before winter, the curbing and stuff got placed in, but we can do up that one as an example of a 30 lot subdivision and what the difference was, yeah.
Yes, I'd be interested to see the difference in that.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like there's a desire to possibly establish the standard, but maybe refine the funding tools. Is that, I'm not quite sure where we go from here other than back to committee to get some costing done again, but is there a desire to set that standard, or do we wait until we come back with the costing? It has to be, something has to be done. It's an
I would
official plan.
suggest that I know it's a lot of information, you might have had it to look at, but we still provided you, I guess, more of an explanation of it. If you have the time to get to your January meeting and you give direction to the committee out of your, that you've had, what's the date, 2 weeks to mull over or reconsider what we sent you around, and you make a direction to the committee and come back with costing options, if that's what you want, and use that as an example. If that's what you want us to do, we can go with it.
Keep going. Yep.
I think we keep moving on, but I don't think there's anybody against sidewalks. It's the issue that we brought up tonight.
I just didn't want you to give us direction today and say
No.
that was a lot of information and
No,
without time to process it and just hearing.
I think those concerns need to be addressed, and
So perhaps the committee could take that back and come forward with options on costing and then maybe specific language in terms of, because I don't think that's in here, right, in terms of what would actually have to change, if they'd have to change site development bylaw or particular language, and then the costing options, and then council could move forward with that. Does that make sense?
Because, I mean, we kind of touched on the funding options. It's just how do we arrive at the
Yeah, you want to
specific
bring
model,
forward
yeah.
some recommendations the same way you brought forward recommendation for the street. Alrighty, great. Yeah, maybe we'll just take a quick 5-minute recess here, and then we'll resume at 6:15. Okay. Great, okay, thanks.
take my hand? We'll move across this floor. We'll dance in time. Right out the door. So keep with me the rhythm, the reason and the rhyme. Keep with me, my love, for the rest of time. We'll walk forever through this world and on, for they can't take our love, though your memories have gone. I'll carry them for you, so gentle yet strong. I'll carry you, my wife. Let this be not our last song. So keep with me the rhythm, the reason and the rhyme. Keep with me, my love, for the rest of time. I sit by the window with photo in hand. It's the sound of your voice. It's calling me back. So I close my eyes. I hear sweet singing birds. Then your hands in mine. Once again, once more. Keep with me the rhythm, the reason and the rhyme. Oh, keep with me, my love, for the rest of time. Keep with me the rhythm, the reason and the rhyme. Oh, keep with me, my love, for the rest of time. I sit by the window with photo in hand. It's the sound of your voice. You're calling me back.
I'm falling off of the wagon again, you're the maritime moonshine that's running through my veins. It's no secret that you're dangerous, but I can't stay away. One taste of you, and I'm high as the moon. I hear your voice calling over the waves. It's as sweet as maple sugar. It scares me to say
Okay, thanks, Sandra, and welcome back, council. We just had a quick recess there. Council's been made aware that there is a fire here in the city of Summerside at the electrical plant. Summerside Fire Department is responding to the structure fire and asking public to avoid the immediate and nearby areas at this time. There's no evacuations necessary for residents, and to follow social media channels for further updates. Had a quick offline discussion with council, and council's of the unanimous decision to adjourn our meeting for tonight. We have no other urgent items. All remaining items on the agenda tonight will come forward at our next committee of the whole meeting, or if necessary, we can schedule an additional meeting of council. So with that, I will ask for someone to, I usually just adjourn the meetings, but in this case, I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor McDougall, second Councillor Cameron. All in favor of adjourning our meeting for January 6th? Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, council. Take care.